Hello everyone, welcome to my balcony garden. Today's video is a step-by-step guide on how to plant any spring flowering bulb in pots. If you're familiar with my channel, you know I do love a bulb, especially a spring flowering one, so I have a playlist dedicated to all that stuff. I'll link it above. It has a variety of videos in there, planting videos, advice about how to get the best out of your bulbs, things like that. If you're interested, check it out. So I'm going to go through the steps that I follow always today, and I'm going to actually be planting a bulb, so I'm kind of sort of killing two birds with one stone here. So this bulb is Narcissus Cheerfulness. Never planted it before. It looks very sweet. I like the creaminess and the frothiness. So yeah, hopefully I'm going to have a lovely display of that in spring. So the first step is to look at the bulbs. Now I'm going to assume that you've already chosen the bulbs that you want. You know the look you're going for, the height and all that stuff. So when you have your bulbs, make sure that they are healthy, and you can tell that by squeezing them. So if they are firm to the touch, it's a good sign, and also look for any signs of pests and diseases anywhere. If they are squidgy, you've got a bulb that's rotten, you can just discard it. It's not going to unfortunately grow into anything. No signs of pests and diseases either. So the next step is to find out what depth the bulbs like to be planted at. So every spring flowering bulb, actually all bulbs, like to be planted at specific depths in the soil. You can find that out by either looking on the packet. If you know the species or the variety, just Google it as well. There is a little trick you can do if you're given bulbs and you don't know exactly what the variety is or even what bulb it is. I'll link it above. It's a little trick you can do, and it's going to find out this perfect depth for that bulb. But if I look on the Cheerfulness package, it says they grow to 35 centimeters, which means they're not going to be planted that deeply in the soil. And yep, so they're planted at 10 centimeters deep in the soil. So I'm going to plant them 10 centimeters. So now I know my height. The next step is to choose the right pot. I always grow my bulbs in terracotta pots. Terracotta is porous, and this is going to help with everything because drainage is very important when we're growing spring flowering bulbs. They have evolved in areas that were either very rocky or there were a lot of stones in the soil. The soil is very free draining, so bulbs cannot sit in water for any length of time. They're going to rot. I also make sure that my pot always has a hole. This is going to improve drainage, and I normally put broken crockery at the bottom just to help again with the drainage situation, but because this pot is relatively small, I'm not going to do it this time. I'm just going to put this pot on a saucer that's going to catch any soil that's going to fall out. The size of the pot, however, is related to the depth that we plant our bulbs at. So I know that I'm planting my bulb at 10 centimeters. I need a pot that is going to allow for 10 centimeters, maybe to about here, and then allow for space for the bulbs to put their roots down. Now, to be honest, let's see there. I have a larger pot over there. I might actually use that one, or maybe I'll put it to here. So let's say that's 10 centimeters there, and then I've got maybe 5 centimeters at the bottom. I would say minimum 5 centimeters in a pot. This is going to really allow enough space for your bulbs to put down roots, establish themselves, take up water, nutrients. You can get away with a smaller section here, but I would recommend, if possible, leaving maybe even 10 centimeters here. It's going to allow the roots to really stretch out and really take up space. I'm going to stick with this pot, however. So I have my pot, I have my bulbs. The next step is the soil. So I always use a good quality peat-free multi-purpose compost. That's good enough for the bulbs. And I normally mix in some sand and grit. This helps again with the drainage situation. So I have my soil here, and it's lovely and free draining, and I've mixed in a little bit of grit and some sand again. Ooh, tomato. Oh. So the next step is to partially fill your pot with soil. So I'm going to be filling the pot, allowing for 10 centimeters here, which is where I'm going to plant my bulbs. So I'm just going to get on and do it. Shove it in. I like to gently firm down as I go. Plants like to feel secure in the soil. They don't want to be in compacted soil though, so just lightly press down. And I think that is a nice height there for my bulbs. Next step is to plant The bulbs, right, so I've got my depth 10 centimeters. Every bulb has a top and a bottom. The top is this pointy bit, this is where the foliage comes out of. The bottom is where the roots, so this flat part, the basal plate, this is the bottom of the plant, sorry. So we want bulb. So we want the bottom here, top here. And all I do is just pop my bulb in. You can twist it a little bit and snug it in, pop it into the soil there. Make sure that the bulb isn't touching the side of the pot. And I'm just going to keep going. When you're planting bulbs in pots, you can get away with packing them in much tighter than you would in the soil. I like to have a really full display as well, so I do pack them in. Make sure again that the bulbs are not even touching each other though. So I've got my bulbs in, now all I do is backfill. I'm going to fill right up to the top here. I'm going to leave a little bit of a space so when I water that the soil doesn't flow over. Done! Next step is to add a label. This is going to really help you identify which pot is which. I forget almost every year, and then, I mean, it is a nice surprise. I get to see plants emerging, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I planted that. However, I would recommend adding a little label with whichever bulb you've planted. Next step is to water your pot in and make sure that the soil gets a really, really nice drink. We want the water to reach the bulbs, because once we actually plant our bulbs, they start to grow. So they're going to start putting down roots. And when they feel the moisture, they feel the water, this is going to help them or trigger them into putting down the roots. And the last step is to place your pot in a sheltered position, either inside or outside. In terms of watering, water at least once a week. To be honest, autumn and winter weather is going to take care of it for you. Watering is if you have your pots outside. I do have a video on how to water pots, bulbs grown in pots. I will also link it up there. But basically make sure that the soil remains moist, never saturated, never sitting in water, but also never drying out either. And now all you have to do is wait until spring. To be honest, that's the hard part for me anyway. So that was my step-by-step guide on how to plant any spring flowering bulb in pots. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you would like to support the channel, subscribe. I hope you're all staying safe and well. I so send you all my good wishes, everyone out there. We all need it right now, I think. Yes, I hope you're all well, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.